Bears fans keep telling themselves that they'll be here next year in Indiana within the next 3 to 5 years with some tragedy following. All right, so let's get into it, starting with a cool little segment we want to do. Out of every single NFC North team, that being the Bears, Packers, Vikings, and Lions, what is one lie that each fan base tells themselves year after year?
I'm going to speak from Chicago Bears point of view, and then we can run through each team and see if we have differences or even similarities. But I'm going to say, as a Chicago Bears point of view, I'm going to say that we have our franchise QB. This can be an absolute hot take, and looking down the line, this could come back to bite me. But the reason that I say it now, Caleb Williams, great quarterback. He has shown us some great arm strength, and he can throw the football. But where he lacks is that accuracy, and that was a big factor last season. Now, I know it's his second year, and he's definitely going to keep growing. But it's the NFL. Going to have time and time again that you're going to have to step up, especially as the quarterback for a Chicago Bears team who's trying to win. Now, will they make the playoffs and all that stuff? Yeah, probably. But a Super Bowl? I don't know. We'll have to see. So that's probably a hot take on my end. I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Nick.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the Bears as well, and then we can just basically just talk about each team as we go. But I will say that the Bears fans keeps telling themselves the same thing with the Dallas Cowboys. Next year. Next year, next year, next year. We saw it when they had Jay Cutler. We saw it when they had Justin Fields, and now we see it with Caleb Williams. Kind of to tie into your we have our franchise quarterback. But they keep telling themselves that they'll be here next year in the Super Bowl. And the last time they made a Super Bowl was what, 2008? And I mean, I'm coming from a Lions fan that has never been to the Super Bowl. Well, within the last 10 to 15 years, realistically, the Lions have made it further than the Bears have. The Packers have made it further than the Bears have. The Vikings have made it further than the Bears have. So I will say that the lie the Bears fans tell themselves year after year is that they will be here next year.
It's an interesting one, especially for a conversation we're going to have later on. But I'm going to go to my Green Bay Packers, and even as a Packers fan, I know a lot of people say a lot of people actually disagree with this one too, and that is we have an elite defense. Now, this is a really, really hot take coming from me because if we gas the Packers defense last year, and there were a lot of improvements, especially with Jeff Halfley, do not get me wrong, but until the Packers find a top tier cornerback room, this defense will not be elite. And they can stop the run. They have, a decent passer rating last season, but until they get that cornerback, this defense will not be elite.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the opposite side of the ball, saying that they have a top five offense.
Whoa.
I don't think they have a top five offense, and they've been saying it for years. Now, stat wise, it could be kind of inflated for sure, having to face the Vikings twice a year and this version of the Lions that we saw this past year. But in terms of top five offense, you look at that offense as a whole, no real superstars on the roster. You look at the wide receiver core, especially, you have Matt Golden, who was just in his rookie year. You have Christian Watson, who's like kind of on the fringe of being a star, but not quite that superstar type level that the Bears, Vikings, and Lions have on their offense. They do have those star to superstar players. And I mean, you look at the running game, Josh Jacob was very mediocre this year. You look at the offensive line, decent offensive line for sure. Jordan Love is really the key factor for me in terms of that offense because he can have those years where he's top three in stats. He can have those years, but we really haven't seen it.
So I'll take. Well, I am very curious to see where you've seen the Packers offense in the top three because I have not seen it in the top five, not top three, because I've seen it maybe like hindering around top 10, outside the top 10,
I've
but not.
seen many tweets from
That's
Packers
insane.
fans saying that they are a top five offense.
Those guys are actually delusional because as we've seen this past season, the Packers offense can get stagnant and yeah, there's no way it's a top five offense. I know we have some great magic in Jordan Love, but I'm gonna go to the point of view of the Minnesota Vikings and pretend like I'm a Vikings fan. And I think a lie that those fans tell themselves is that they're competitive in this division. And in my opinion, their year of winning the North with Sam Darnold was just a fluke. I mean, what a year. You look back
Well,
at
they
the
didn't win
year,
it.
they were 14-3. Oh, well, okay, that's right. They were second 14-3 with Sam Darnold. And looking back at those games, you just see how many comeback games there were. With the Colts game specifically, I remember they were down like 28 nothing or something like that, and they came back and won that game. Just
Hmm.
so many fluky things that happened that season. Reminds me of the Chicago Bears this past season. Now, were they a good team? Yeah, they were good, but lot of luck. I mean, that is like a one off season, and then you see the transition happen, and obviously with JJ McCarthy now, the Vikings are not competitive.
Now, I'll kind of do a double whammy, essentially putting two lies into one that they have a good front office because we have seen it. We talked about it last episode. This front office for the Minnesota Vikings has not been a smart one, to say the least. Yes, they paid Justin Jefferson, which they probably needed to even come close to winning probably 5 games this year. But I will say also, we do see the Falcons releasing Kirk Cousins. Would it be a smart move for the Vikings to get Kirk Cousins again? I say for the veteranship, yes, to kind of be a mentor for your franchise quarterback in JJ McCarthy. But I will say the front office for this Minnesota Vikings team has been god awful. And the fact that Vikings fans can even come close to saying, we have a good front office, we have a top two wide receiver in the league. Sure, you have Justin Jefferson, who probably top two, top three wide receiver in the league. But everything else has been awful. Yes, you had a decent free agency for defense, but where did that get you?
Question for you: is that take before or after the firing of the GM?
Both.
Because okay, interesting. I have not seen. I honestly have not really seen Vikings fans on my Twitter, so I wouldn't know. I haven't really checked out the Vikings fan base as a whole. So honestly, I don't know what they're claiming over there, but I'm sure it's all just Justin Jefferson at this point. But yeah, there's no way that they have a front office or a good front office that is. But I'm gonna let you go ahead and roast your Lions in that fan base because I'm interested to hear what the lie is over there in Detroit.
I would say something, but based on what I'm hearing, I'm going to go a different path. That Brad Holmes is really good at being a GM.
Whoa. Did
That's
not
going to be
expect
my
that.
lie
Now that's
because
go ahead.
I know it's going to be a hot take, but you have the opportunity to re sign David Montgomery or at least convince him to stay because he's still under contract. And you had multiple opportunities to get an edge rusher, and you decide to bring back Levi Onwuzurike and Josh Pascal. And then in the draft, I mean, you drafted Hendon Hooker in the second round. Where did that get you? You signed Broderick Martin in the third round, I think. Where did that get you? There have been some good things from Brad Holmes, for sure. But there has been a lot of bad. And now seeing, I will say, this could be a good thing if it is actually confirmed. Re signing Jahmyr Gibbs to a 4 year, $80+ million contract. That is a good thing because you have a star in Jahmyr Gibbs. But at the same time, you're taking cap space for when you can get an edge rusher and win within the next 3 years.
I was actually going to ask you that because I saw that on my timeline that Gibbs is searching for that $80 million. I think over 4 years, comes out to 20 million a year, whatever the
He'd
number
be the
is.
highest paid running back.
Right. I was going to ask you really quick if you are comfortable with that number and signing that contract.
I'm 50-50 because a player like Jahmyr Gibbs, yes, he's worth that money, but he's a running back.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I will say you do not pay running backs that amount of money because running backs in the long run really only have careers 6 to 8 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
So with a 4 year extension, you're looking at the entire 8 years having Gibbs on the Lions, which could be a good thing, yes. But once you get closer to those later years, you're going to be eating up that cap space. And who knows in 4 years from now if Gibbs is going to be the same player he is today.
Yeah. My hot take, or I guess lie for the Detroit Lions, is you guys can win with Jared Goff. Now, I'm not saying win as in, win the NFC North or
Playoff, like Super Bowl.
playoff Super Bowl.
Okay.
Exactly. I think the guy he's a great competitor, do not get me wrong, but I think he just cannot get over the hump to go to the Super Bowl, get in the Super Bowl. I just don't think he can live up to those bigger moments that other quarterbacks can. I do think he is still a good quarterback, but I don't think he is a Super Bowl caliber quarterback.
Okay. I'll ask you a question for that. What current quarterback would you say, with the Lions roster as it's structured currently, with the new hiring and announcement that Mike Kafka is now the pass game coordinator for the Lions, the way that this roster is structured now, what current quarterback do you see could be a really good fit for the Lions? And don't say like the top three in Lamar, Josh Allen, and Pat Mahomes.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask free agents or current quarterbacks on any team if I could just pick one. I was going to say Josh Allen, but if I'm not going to go outside the top three, I would probably say I almost like Brock Purdy. I mean, Brock Purdy is an interesting one. I think the Lions, they do like to throw the ball. The tight ends over there in Detroit aren't bad, and Laporta, and obviously on the Niners you got Kittle, and then their number two is not bad. So I could see Brock Purdy is a solid fit. I think with Brock Purdy, the Lions honestly could make a deep run in the playoffs, which is interesting.
Yeah, the person that beat the Lions in the NFC Championship. If I wouldn't say that Josh Reynolds beat us with 3 4th down drops. But okay. So next, I mentioned in the intro something about Indiana. The Chicago Bears will most likely not be known as the Chicago Bears anymore. After being a founding team in the NFL and being at Soldier Field for the last 90+ years, I want to say at this point. You, as someone from Chicago, how do you see this, one, impacting the city, and two, impacting the NFL as a whole?
Well, I wanted to point out because I don't know if it's going to be confirmed that the Chicago Bears will. I think they will still be the Chicago Bears despite them playing in Hammond, because we look at other teams in the NFL, such as the New York Jets, right? They play in Jersey. The Buffalo
Right.
Bills, they play in New York, I believe. And
Well,
there's
Buffalo is in New York, so
no, I mean, I think where does hold on, let me see really quick. The Bills play.
they play in Highland Park. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, or Orchard Park, New York. Okay,
Orchard Park.
yeah, yeah, okay. So you see these teams in the NFL who still have their same name, like their city name, but they play in different places. I still think the Chicago Bears will still be the Chicago Bears, but this is going to impact, as you said, the city as a whole. I mean, people are already outraged. I mean, insanely out for the right reasons. They're calling for the mayor, the governor of Illinois.
Hmm.
Insane. Yeah, the Chicago Bears have been an establishment, even though they haven't been a great franchise, but people have still shown out to Soldier Field, which is crazy, and people are passionate about the Bears. So this will definitely hurt attendance. No one's going to go to Hammond, Indiana, who are in Chicago, right? They're
Right.
going to drive, despite it only being 20 minutes across the border. It's just the idea of going to another state. That's not, that's not, how do I describe it? That's not your actual
Home
home
team.
ground. Yeah, exactly. Like it's not your home ground. So it's definitely going to be a negative impact, and people are going to be outraged about this.
Yeah, and I kind of want to piggyback off of you in terms of calling for the mayor and the governor because all the Bears asked was for $30 million to build a dome. The NFL was going to pay 60 million and the Bears were going to pay I think 80 million and they had already purchased the land in Highland Park, I think it is, or Arlington Heights. Arlington Heights. They had already like purchased the property to build this dome arena so then potentially Chicago can one day host a Super Bowl, can one day actually have fans not freezing their butts off and potentially losing fingers in the middle of December. So all they were asking for was like $30 million from the state of Illinois. And the state of Illinois said no. So I do think that it's going to impact the city. You mentioned driving to another state. Now, I do want to say, in terms of the team name, I could see it still being the Chicago Bears with seeing obviously the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets and Giants. You have San Francisco 49ers when they play in Santa Clara. And but it's not going to be the same for sure. Yes, it's going to be the same front office and the same coach and the same players, but it's not going to be the same for fans going to Soldier Field or going to Chicago or Arlington Heights compared to Hammond in Indiana. And especially if you do change the name, you already have an Indiana team in the Colts.
Yeah, I was just quickly looking at because you said 30 million, and I thought that was quite low. And the Bears are actually looking for 630 million to renovate their. So,
From the
I
state,
yeah, so
I
they
thought it
actually
was as a whole.
they wanted to take 500. I just had the article here, but anyways, the 130 was going to renovate like the seats and all that stuff, but the other 500 million was going to something else with the stadium. But nonetheless, I mean, I think the state should have funded them. I mean, that team has brought so much for your city. So nonetheless, it's a big loss for the city of Chicago if they're going to let them go. I think it's kind of crazy. And also, I just read that Indiana passed a bill for the stadium in Indiana to be built. So this is looking more and more legit.
Yep. Now, I want us to get our crystal balls out to predict the next 3 to 5 years for the NFC North. I want the next 5 NFC North champions. I want the biggest hot takes for the next 5 years. of where these NFC North teams are going to be. So yeah.
I'd have to get my thinking cap on here. I mean, I'll quickly start. I think the next 5 years, I know we talked about this earlier, and it will be the Chicago Bears winning this division for a couple years, unfortunately. Maybe not next year. I think the following year, in the next 2028, will be the Chicago Bears as long as they have Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson combo. Now, I know I did say earlier that Caleb Williams isn't that guy, but I think he will be good enough, but I don't think he's a long-term answer. I still think that guy will have, you know, problems, but I still think with that team and how it's built right now, it's built to win. So I got the Bears 2028, 2029, probably ruling this division for a good bit. For the other three teams, I got the Vikings completely tanking out. I mean, they're going to have to get a quarterback, franchise, rebuild, rip it all apart. They're going to lose a lot of defensive players eventually. Who knows if they reach DJ Turner? Um, Justin Jefferson will be an interesting one in 3 to 5 years. I'm not sure if I don't think he'll re-sign with the Vikings. For the Detroit Lions, this is an interesting one because Jared Goff's soon to be gone. I think maybe we see a decline in Jared Goff. Will the Lions have to get a new QB as well? The Green Bay Packers is such an interesting one because as much as I want to say we're on the uphill competing for a Super Bowl, I think we're still going to be that playoff lingering team and we'll be eliminated first or second round every time. I just think there's always going to be something with the Packers every year that just doesn't make me fully believe that we're going to actually make it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I'll start with the Chicago Bears. I do think within probably the next 2 years they will win the division again.
Dude, that's so disheartening to think about.
It is. But I don't think they'll run the division.
Okay.
I think the following 3 years is going to split between the Lions and the Packers, solely because with the stars that the Lions have and will still have under contract, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, those guys are going to be coming into their prime here soon. Jahmyr Gibbs, Aiden Hutchinson, Jared Goff, iffy, right, with Jared Goff. Aiden Hutchinson going to be on the rise. And just with the Dan Campbell mindset, that grit, never giving up on a play, never letting yourself be down, that sort of idea. Lions, I think within the next 5 years they make a Super Bowl. I think within the next 5 years they make a Super Bowl just because I do think that this is probably the best roster that they've had, especially now having Terrion Arnold coming back. Potentially, I'm seeing Kirby Joseph coming back here shortly. Brian Branch will be back. Sam Laporta will be back with Drew Petzing, who loves his tight ends, by the way. And having that coaching staff, now having Dan Skipper as a coach for the Lions as well, and also seeing the rise of Penei Sewell. And I'm hearing that they might be going after a center and another tackle in the draft. We'll see how that goes. For the Packers, I think they're on the fringe of just making the playoffs for the next 5 years. Do I see them making an NFC championship? Probably not. That's just my opinion. Packers fans, you can roast me all you want. But I think they are further than most people think because they have been a playoff team consistently for my entire life, for sure. But I do think Jordan Love is a couple of key attributes away, and the Packers as a team in the long run are a couple pieces away. The Vikings. Where do I start with the Vikings? I think we see the Vikings potentially go 0-17 within the next 5 years. I see a world where they go 0-17.
Jeez, this is just Minnesota hatred over here. Wow, that's pretty tough to do, Nick. I'm not gonna lie.
I do think that we do see Justin Jefferson leave within the next 2 to 3 years because we see the frustration already for him as a whole in the Vikings organization. He loved playing with Sam Darnold, and he loved playing with Kirk Cousins. Now both those guys are gone, and you had Nick Mullins and J.J. McCarthy, and he does not like playing with either one of those. And then you potentially see Jordan Addison being suspended for a while with the charges that he has on him. So that would be very interesting. But I do see Justin Jefferson leaving within the next 2 to 3 years, and I do see them potentially going 0-17 within the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting in the next 3 to 5 years. Now that we talk about it, I really have not thought about it like that, but time's coming, and things will soon change before we know it.
Yeah, and the last thing that we want to talk about is the unfortunate passing of wide receiver Rondale Moore. He was a guy that back to back years had season ending injuries. We weren't able to see him in a Vikings uniform, but he was signed with the Minnesota Vikings. We did see him in an Arizona uniform, and it is definitely unfortunate passing of Rondale Moore. I believe he was 25 years old out of Purdue University. And this has been a long stretch of NFL players and legends passing away in the last 5 years. So rest in peace to Rondale Moore. Prayers out to his family. Prayers out to the Vikings family. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And go follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Go follow our Twitter at GridironPodNFL. It's been Nick and Mike. See you guys next week.